Hi, and welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher on AFR Talk. If you'd like to join the conversation, 888-589-8840. Number to call, 888-589-8840. Glad to have you talk about anything we've addressed in the program to this point, including what's happening to our military, what's happening to religious liberty in our military, how it is being expunged, how it's being removed, how all public acknowledgement of Jesus Christ and Christianity, the gospel, is being stripped not only from the public arena, but from our military. And now we have cross-dressers, drag queens performing on military bases, on Air Force bases, with the encouragement and the praise of brigadier generals in the United States Air Force. In other words, with official approval. You know, the brigadier general said, look, this is how the whole campaign for LGBT rights started. Started at the Stonewall Inn, 1969. People dressed in drag, the police busted up. This is how the whole civil rights movement, what they call the civil rights movement, based on sexual perversity, that's how it all began. So we celebrate this. This is the best of what the Air Force is all about. And then conversation with John Guandolo, FBI counterterrorism expert. Remember, he was teaching the truth about Islam. All the materials that he provided, all of the training material that John Guandolo and two others provided, experts on Islam, the threat it represents to the West. A couple of years ago, under President Obama, all of those materials stripped from the counterterrorism training. So our people in the military, people in the FBI, they are flying blind when it comes to Islam because they are relying on information to prepare them to deal with counterterrorism efforts that have stripped all of the facts about Islam completely out of the equation. These people have no idea. If they're depending on what they get from the FBI to understand the threat of Islam, it's just going to be gibberish. It's going to be gobbledygook. It's going to be completely whitewashed. You know, and you heard John Guandolo say, look, this business about John Brennan being a Muslim, he's the head of the CIA. Think about this just for a minute. You know, Muslim Brotherhood, as John Guandolo explains, represents a lethal threat to the safety and security of the United States of America. 12%, 1/8 of every dollar that's given to a mosque goes straight into funding terrorist activity around the world. And of course, some of that is directed against the United States. So we have treason taking place right in our midst. These Muslim student associations, 600 campuses, these are just simply recruiting cells for jihad. That's all they are. They're part of the Muslim Brotherhood. That's all they are. Just recruiting and training cells for jihad. Right here on our college campuses, money being funneled into terrorism every single week when these zakat is paid at the mosques on Friday. And John Guandolo said, look, the guy that heads up the CIA, remember the CIA, that's the organization that's responsible. That's the Central Intelligence Agency. This is the organization that's responsible to make sure that we've got the intelligence to know what our enemies are up to. And it's being headed now by a guy who is a convert to Islam. He's a guy that supports the paying of zakat. He probably does it himself. If he's a convert to Islam, John Brennan is probably paying money every month to support jihad against the United States. He's funding terrorism. Our CIA director is funding terrorism. I mean, if he's being a good Muslim, that's what he's doing. 12% of everything he gives to the mosque, gives to one of these charities, going straight into attacking the United. So, I mean, you know, the level of betrayal here, ladies and gentlemen, is just beyond almost our ability to process that we have a guy that's the head of the Central Intelligence Agency that, if he is being a good Muslim, is funding terrorism. He is contributing out of his own pocket with the paycheck he gets from money that's been extracted from us. We pay his salary. He's taking whatever he gives to mosque and 1/8 of that going right into funding terrorist attacks against the United States of America. That, ladies and gentlemen, is just about as bad as it gets. 888-589-8840, the number to call, 888-589-8840. Let's go to the phones. Go to Gary, Houston, Texas. Gary, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
I'd just like to comment on the guy was talking about the Holy Land Foundation.
Yeah,
a trial a while ago, and I've got a friend whose husband worked on that case, and I'm sure that the judge threw that out and ruled in favor of the Holy Land Foundation. It's just like with the government and the politically correct thing is pro-Muslim and anti-Christian. It's just discouraging.
Well, now I think Gary, again, I'm going from memory here, so I may not be exactly correct, but I am pretty sure that the Holy Land Foundation itself was found guilty in that case. Now, there were a number of other organizations, like CARE, for instance, the Council on American Islamic Relations. They were labeled as unindicted co-conspirators. So they didn't get charged. They were co-conspirators. Our government, our Department of Justice said, look, they are conspiring with the Holy Land Foundation to fund Hamas, to fund terrorist activities. We either don't have enough evidence, or we don't have enough time, or we don't have enough resources to actually prosecute them. But they are co-conspirators. We're identifying them as such. They're just unindicted co-conspirators, which means, assuming the statute of limitations has not run out, which it may well have, they could have been indicted at any point for the same offenses. So the Holy Land Foundation was found guilty. Some of these ancillary organizations that were working with the Holy Land Foundation, including organizations like the Muslim Student Association, the Islamic Society of North America, the CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, I think they weren't let off the hook really, but they weren't indicted. They're saying, we think you're guilty. We believe you did it. If we had time, resources, energy, we could drag you into court and prosecute you. So Gary, does that sound close to what you understand, or is that a little different than what you understand?
I'm going from memory, but the lady, my friend, I remember talking about it, and maybe it wasn't that they didn't indict, but it.
Yeah, I think that was the deal.
I was in the Dallas area, and the Holy Land Foundation's in Richardson, and that was the focus on the local news.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened. And I think the Holy Land Foundation was found guilty. All these people that were working with them, we were told, the government was saying, look, you're guilty. We could prosecute you. We're going to choose not to for now, but you are an unindicted co-conspirator. And some of those people sort of got off the legal hook that way. All right, Gary, listen, I appreciate the call. Thank you for that. Let's go to Kurt, Grants Pass, Oregon. Kurt, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Good afternoon, Brian.
Howdy.
We're reaping what we sow because we're ignorant. I have a videotape called Jihad in America, produced in 1994, distributed by Unity Coalition for Israel by Stephen Emerson.
Mm-hmm.
We were warned way back in 94.
Yeah, and Steve Emerson, he's an expert on this stuff. He knows his stuff.
And what did we put into the White House? And I've heard people on American Family Radio, Obama's the commander-in-chief, so the military's got to obey him. Who is it better to obey, God or men's laws? There are the code of conduct for the military against sodomy, and yet we got a president that's going the opposite direction. When are we going to kick him out of office? Or I wish all the military would quit.
It's interesting, Kurt, and I appreciate your call. Thank you for that. We don't want the military to quit because then we're defenseless. But it's interesting today. I saw a story about a congressman who actually believes that there are enough votes in the House of Representatives to impeach President Obama. Now, there wouldn't be enough votes in the Senate to convict him, but this congressman was saying, look, we believe that there are enough votes in the House to actually impeach President Obama if we chose to do that. And I believe that there are impeachable offenses that this president has committed. Is just flagrantly ignoring the Constitution, refusing to carry out his oath of office, which is to see that the laws are faithfully executed. He's not doing that. He just picks and chooses the laws that he wants to enforce, ignores the rest, works around the rest, frustrates the West, or tramples on the rest. Any part of the law, any part of the Constitution he doesn't like, he doesn't support, he simply ignores. That's treason when you're talking about a man who is the chief law enforcement officer. That's his job, is to execute the law, to see that the laws are faithfully executed. When he is so blatantly and egregiously refusing to do what he took a solemn oath before Almighty God to do, then that is clearly that's clearly a level of offense that the Constitution had in mind. That's a high crime and misdemeanor. And the founders said this is how you can hold a president accountable in between elections. There is an accountability for every public office holder. This is how you can hold a president of the United States accountable in between elections. If he steps over the line, Congress has the power to remove him from office. We got one congressman saying we got enough votes to at least start the process if we're so minded. Let's go to Don in Springdale, Arkansas. Don, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hello. Well,
Hey.
Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. I mean, we have a president who is basically guilty of treason, and we really can't remove him from office because look who number two is. We have a CIA director who is a practicing Muslim and is probably trying to impose Sharia on the USA. And also we have a commander-in-chief who wants his brown shirts, his civilian defense force put in place. What is the difference between that and being invaded and overrun by a foreign army?
Well, and it's interesting. You look at the statement, the goal of the Muslim Brotherhood, and it was to sabotage our miserable house from within. In other words, the Muslim Brotherhood knew in 1991, we don't have enough military might to take over and dismantle the United States of America. So we are going to sabotage it from within. What better way than to have a Muslim sympathizer as a president who has no regard for the Constitution and the law, but profound sympathies for Islam? What better way than to put a practicing Muslim in the chair of directing the Central Intelligence Agency? That's sabotaging our miserable house from within, so they are getting the job done. Thanks, Don. I appreciate the call.
Okay.
It's Representative Blake Farenthold from Texas. He told a town hall crowd this weekend that he believes there are enough votes in the House to impeach President Obama. So anyway, you got one out there saying there's a growing level of dissatisfaction in the House of Representatives. Focal Point AFR Talk will be back right after the news. Stay with us.